when the angels made their claim to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, why are you creating this creation? It's just going to cause problems. Create more of us. We are the ones who are constantly and consistently and perfectly purifying ourselves and developing ourselves to please you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala now begins to show the angels what is unique and special about the human being. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says the following, وَعَلَّمَ آدَمَ الْأَسْمَاءَ كُلَّهَا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala taught Adam alayhi salam the names of everything. And then he told the angels, right, tell me the names of these things. Right? Tell me the names of these things. If you are truthful. You see this claim that you made, that you're better than the human beings, that your ability to develop yourselves is perfect. Tell me the names of these things. And the response of the angels, of course, is 100% honest. قالوا سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. They say, glory to you. The only knowledge that we have is the knowledge that you have given us. You are the all-knowing and you are the all-wise. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to Adam alayhi salam, Ya Adam, أنبئهم بأسمائهم. O Adam, tell them the names of these things. فلما أنبأهم بأسمائهم قال ألم أقل لكم إني أعلم غيب السماوات والأرض وأعلم ما تبدون وما كنتم تكتمون. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, didn't I tell you angels? I know everything. I know the seen and the unseen. I know what you say and I know what you conceal. What's going on here? What is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saying? What's the argument? And it goes as follows, dear brothers and sisters. Let's take it bit by bit. Number one, وَعَلَّمَ آدَمَ الْأَسْمَاءَ كُلَّهَا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala taught Adam the names of everything. This verse is telling us two very important aspects of the human experience. And to really channel this point, let's ask the question, what makes the human being different than animals? What? Well, for one, we have rationale. Our ability to rationalize the world around us, to develop our mental capacity to learn, to grow in our mental capacity, far exceeds that of the animals. And so what makes a human being is their rational capacity. But it's not just that. Another factor that differentiates us is language. We have the ability to communicate. We have the ability to talk to other people in a way that is much, much, much more developed than animals can ever do. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us that He taught Adam the names of everything, well, taught Adam is referring to the rationale. The names of everything is referring to the language. Essentially, what makes the human being a human being is their mental capacity and their linguistic abilities. And so, human development, what it means to be a human being, what it means to maintain the dignity of the human being, the dignified human, is having a sound mind and having a good tongue. So the Prophet ﷺ teaches us, لَيْسَ الْمُؤْمِنْ بِطَاعَانْ وَلَا لَعَانْ وَلَا بَذِيء وَلَا فَاحِشْ وَلَا مُتَفَحِّشْ. The Prophet ﷺ teaches us that a believer is not someone whose tongue is used aggressively to harm other people, or whose tongue is vulgar, or whose tongue is indecent, or whose tongue talks about bad things, vulgar things, disrespectful things, indecent things. This is not the way of a believer. Essentially saying that a person whose mouth is very, very, very foul, a person who's constantly tossing swear words left and right, who's talking about things that are inappropriate and quite frankly a person should be ashamed of to talk about that so publicly and casually, then they're missing an aspect of Iman. And it's very, very, very unfortunate that the English language, as it's used today, people here in America, they throw swear words left and right. it really takes away from the human being. The same thing when it comes to the mind. I'm hearing now from Gen Z and the younger generation, this concept of a rotten brain rot, I believe is the term. This word brain rot refers to slang words that are used by this younger generation. Essentially, they're acknowledging that their lifestyle, from video games to shorts to reels to YouTube, and the content that they're consuming is rotting their brains. So we Muslims, we really need to understand that it is part of Iman to preserve the purity of our tongues and the purity of our minds. And it is part of Iman and part of being a human being to develop these things. So learning is such a core aspect of Islam that literally the first word of the Quran is what? Iqra, read. Read. The Quran is a book of knowledge. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that His knowledge has descended in the Quran. So when we read the Quran, we develop our minds. And the Quran is a book of language, eloquent speech. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave Adam, the human being, these two very beautiful gifts. But it gets better. The argument continues and says, hey angels, Adam alayhi salam, the human being, is more capable of learning than you. And that makes them better. How so? Well, the angel said, we only know what you teach us. Subhanak, our ability to glorify you, to enact your commands, to do what you ask of us, is proportionate to how much knowledge you give us. You see the relationship? In order to worship Allah, to obey Allah, to have a relationship with Allah, it precedes knowledge. And if the human being has a greater capacity of knowing, of learning, then they can enact higher levels of worship and carrying out Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's commands. So listen to this very beautiful verse at the end of Surah At-Talaq. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Allahu alladhi khalaqa sab'a samawatin ومن الأرض مثلهن يتنزل الأمر بينهن لتعلموا أن الله على كل شيء قدير وأن الله قد أحاط بكل شيء علما. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says the following. Pay attention to this. He says that He created the 7 heavens and He created the earth with 7 layers. And He sent down revelation between the two. Now, all of our universe has essentially been drawn in our minds right now. And what's happening between the two. Allah says He created all of this for the following reason. So that you get to know that Allah is capable of doing all things and that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has power over all things. In other words, our existence, our time here on this earth is to get to know Allah. Knowledge. The more we know Allah, the closer we are to Him. And if the angels are limited in their capacity to learn, and they are limited in their capacity to know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So He tells the angels, didn't I tell you? Didn't I tell you? And so know, angels, you are not better simply because you can purify yourself through rituals and acts of worship. The human has a greater capacity of becoming better than you because they have a better capacity to learn about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is right there epic. And so, oh human being, what are you doing with your mind? What? Are you wasting it on senseless, meaningless content? Or are you developing it in a way that allows you to evolve your Iman to being that is better than the angels? Of course, it's a journey and it's a goal. And we know that the prophets, ﷺ, are better than the angels. And then that knowledge can be used to communicate to other people. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells the Prophet to talk about the blessings of Allah. Share the verses of the Quran. Share the names and the attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the Quran is a book of knowledge that came to us through a language, communicated to us through a language. So, O human being, how much have you developed your mind and how much have you developed your tongue? Assalamu alaikum. Jazakumullah khair for watching. Please share this khair and let other people benefit from the lessons and support this masjid by becoming one of its sustainers.